What up, bros? Welcome back to Throwin Hands. It's me, it's Toby. Sorry for no review on the last one. Your boy got caught up with a bunch of things, but we're here nonetheless. And Toby, I think we got a fun episode today. There's no fights this weekend. That means it's time for us to do some things off the beaten path of Throwin Hands.
Yeah, I think it should be a fun episode. I won't reveal exactly what we're doing. I'll let you do that. But I will say there are some cool fights, non-UFC fights. There's a one card, I believe today actually, or maybe Saturday. But there's also a PFL this weekend, I believe. So there's some cool cards out there.
Yeah, there's some cool cards out there. Um, but what we're doing today, guys, is Toby and I have made the first ever Throwin Hands pound for pound rankings. I can't believe we haven't done this before, and I could see this being a twice yearly thing for sure. But this is the first time we're doing it, and it's late September, and I'm sure we'll do it at the end of the year. But anyway, so let's get into this real quick. I have a Word doc with some names covered up. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's weird. Um, anyway, it didn't show. It's nothing. It's just homework. Um,
That's good at least.
where? Oh, here we are. Here
There
we
we
are. Here's
go.
the pound for pound rankings. So
Nice.
we have a few honorable mentions. Davis and Figueiredo. I think I messed that up, but shout out Davis and
It's
Figueiredo.
reasonably close.
But yeah, Toby and I we literally put Drakus down and then we started recording, so we didn't really proofread any of this. But Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno, Colby Covington, Justin Gaethje, and Drakus Duplessis. Um, and yes, let's start with Drakus because low key, I think this could be the order. But switch Moreno Figueiredo. As much as I hate to say it, he beat a man who's in the pound for pound rankings for over half a decade. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So kudos to Drakus for pulling off what he did against Robert Whitaker back in July.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Drakus fan either, but the more that he's around, the more I do gain begrudging appreciation for his style. I mean, somehow
Begrudging appreciation.
he's able to pull it off somehow. I mean, he's sloppy, his technique is not great, but man, I mean, that guy, he's got cardio for days, he's got power, he knows how to find your chin. And Rob Whitaker is not an easy guy to put out. He's fought very powerful fighters before, and he's been hurt badly. And the thing with Rob too is there are a lot of guys out there who can get hurt, right? And Rob has been hurt before, but there aren't many guys that can fight when they're hurt like Whitaker can. If you ever watch the second Yoel Romero fight, I mean, Rob Whitaker was hurt so bad, and he just survived and survived and survived. And for Drakus to go in there and just put him away like that, break
Yeah.
him down and beat him up, when Rob was just covering up, he's just pounding on him. I think that definitely deserves an honorable mention. Not to mention too, Drakus is on like a 6 fight win streak and good, he deserves
It's
a
not
title shot, in my
it's not an
opinion.
easy
So
thing to do when it comes to being in the UFC. A 6 fight win streak in the UFC, regardless of what level you're at, that's a tough thing to do.
yeah, yeah.
Um, next up, Justin Gaethje. Yeah, I mean, he proved he still got it against Poirier with that head kick. As much as I love Dustin, he's one of my favorite fighters. I can't stand when people dog on him. Oh, he's a fake nice guy. No, he's a real nice guy. He that shows he can be mean. But Gaethje can crack, man. And I think after Makhachev and Oliveira, he's getting the next title shot.
Yeah.
And I hope Gaethje wins because I think they'll make Poirier Gaethje 3 no matter what. And Dustin can get his real belt.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
Yeah, that would be fun, man. Are there people really saying that Dustin is like a fake nice guy? That is so weird.
Yeah, like my thing is like he is a nice guy, but he's a genuine person. He's not going to put on like a mask and be nice all the time.
Yeah. He has human emotions, he goes through ups and downs, of course, but
Yeah.
no, he's definitely a good guy. I mean, just look at his charitable work for, what he does for his city back in Lafayette, Louisiana. But yeah, man, I think Gaethje is well deserved as an honorable mention because I thought, I didn't think he was falling off by any means. I just thought that there were some new guys that were coming up in the division that might give him some problems. I thought maybe his skill set was a little bit limited. And then you see this Fiziev fight, and it's like, oh man, this guy's definitely still got it. He's banging out here with one of the best strikers in the UFC, going to war with him and winning. And then he goes out there and flatlines Dustin Poirier, who I absolutely love Dustin Poirier. I thought Poirier had better skills. I thought he had a great chin. I thought he was just better everywhere. And
Yeah.
that's no disrespect to Gaethje. I just love Dustin Poirier and his skill set. And then he went out there and starched them. So these last two fights for me have been very impressive from Justin Gaethje.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, I don't think he needs to do anything else. I think if you're Justin Gaethje, you wait, you recover, and you wait for your title shot. Don't go into another fight. Don't take on like a Gamrot or a Dariush or whatever. Just wait, because you're
Yeah.
on a 2-fight win streak over two absolute killers.
Yeah.
That's enough, in my opinion.
Speaking of physique, man, prayers up to that dude. Tore his
Yeah,
ACL in the Gamrot fight.
very rough.
It was
Very
looking to be
rough.
a great scrap too. But and for people saying, "Oh, that shouldn't count for winning for Gamrot," if that was a street fight, Gamrot would have won that street fight. So therefore, Gamrot wins. And Gamrot didn't want it to end that way, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
they're both great fighters. But yeah, Gaethje savage. All right, next one. Kobe Covington. Here's my thing with Kobe Covington. If he had stayed active, he'd be like 15-14 in the pound for pound, in my opinion. But he hasn't done so, and therefore he's dropped to an honorable mention. But the thing with Colby Covington is his only losses to Kamaru Usman, and you can argue he won the second fight. I thought he did, but I'm not going to argue with you if you say he didn't, because it was that close of a fight. Great fight. But this dude has cardio for days. I forget to mention it, but his striking isn't the greatest, but he's going to hit you with 3, 4, 5 shots, and you're not going to be able to get one off on him because he just pressures relentlessly. I'm very intrigued for this fight in December with Leon Edwards and Colby Covington. Colby Covington taking over a year and a half off. There's a lot of factors going in that fight, and if Colby Covington, as much as that dude trains, I don't see the ring rust coming. The Colby train might be coming through Las Vegas.
Yeah, man. Kobe's definitely, you got to put him up there. Got to give him some credit. Usman's been in the pound for pound rankings for a very long time now, and he went toe to toe with Usman multiple times. Arguably beat Usman in the second fight because yes, he got dropped a couple of times. He had a bad second round, but he had a very good third, fourth, and fifth round. So you can
Jab
make a
was
good
on
argument.
point.
Yeah, you can make an argument that at the very least it could have been a draw, I would say. I thought it should have been a draw, in my honest opinion, or Colby should have won. I mean, it was a very close fight. Even in the first fight, man, I know, like, he got finished. Yes, I agree with that. But the stoppage, a little questionable, let's be honest. Back of the head shots. He was covering up, and Usman was just hitting him to the back of the head. Come on, Mark Goddard, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
I mean,
We're not knocking Mark Goddard. He's the best in the game.
no, yeah, he's one of the best in the game, but that was not his best stoppage. But anyway, it was a close fight. I mean, that was 2-2 most likely in that fifth round, and Usman was taken over, so he would have won that fight by decision most likely. But Colby, he's just gone toe to toe with some of the best guys out there. His win streak, even before that, is super impressive. Not a lot of finishes on there, but beating guys like Robbie Lawler, Rafael dos Anjos, all in succession like that is super impressive. And it is, like you said, the only reason he's not higher is because he fought once in 2020, once in 2021, and once in 2022, and he has not fought in 2023. So 3 times in the last 3 years, this guy's fought. And yeah, that's just not enough. I mean, it's just been so long since the Masvidal fight. I was looking back, trying to think like, man, when was the last time Colby fought? And it was the Jorge Masvidal card, which is like UFC 272. I mean, it's been quite a while. So
It's been quite a while. Let's talk about these two together. Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. I am excited for Davison Figueiredo. I think he's fighting Rob Font for his
great fight,
bantamweight debut,
great
which
fight.
is great. I think he
Tough
could be a
matchup.
killer. I think he could be a killer at bantamweight.
Yeah, we'll see how the size plays though, because Rob Font is a pretty tall guy
But
compared to
Figueiredo was a massive flyweight.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited for that fight, man. Figueiredo, I think when it comes to the nitty gritty of it, I think he'll go down as a better flyweight than Brandon Moreno because he actually defended his title. Brandon Moreno never defended his title. He's like the Carlos Esparza men's flyweight. Um, but Carlos Esparza, congrats on the kid. That's a great thing. But these two are both absolute dogs in the cage, man. They can finish you any way they want, and they're both fun as hell to watch. They're you take it away from me. They're both good.
Yeah, I think we included them both together just because they're so evenly matched. They're both incredible fighters, former champions in a very, very good division, a very underrated and good division in flyweight. Like you mentioned, Figueiredo might have a slight advantage when it comes to Moreno, just on his legacy, because Figueiredo is a bit more unscathed, and also he did defend his title. And something that's actually really interesting about Figueiredo that a lot of people forget is that he fought Alex Perez, right? Defended his title at UFC 255, and then literally like 3 weeks later fought Moreno at 256. So I don't know why I can't remember the exact circumstances of like why he did that.
I remember because Moreno beat Royval in the first round because of the injury, and they both came out unscathed, and
Right.
they're like, let's do another title shot 3 weeks later.
Yeah, see, I don't think that was a great idea for either guy because you can say like, well, I didn't get hurt and I feel fine, but that weight cut, man, that takes a long time. That takes a lot out of your body, and
Unless
you
you're down to
should
25.
down to 20. Yeah, Figueredo's huge. I mean, we know that this guy has had some issues on the scale before because he is a massive, massive flyweight. So I just don't think that was a great idea. But anyway, that's kind of off topic. I mean, both these guys, incredible fighters. Each one of their fights, all four of them, have been some of the best fights you will ever see, especially the first one. I just remember watching that first one where it went to a draw, watching it with my dad at home, just like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Great fight.
It is a beautiful fight. I got to see Figueiredo where he should have won the belt live, in Norfolk, Virginia, where he destroyed Joseph Benavidez, but he missed weight for that fight. So I did not see him get the belt wrapped around his waist.
That was an
But
egregious beatdown. That
yeah,
was horrible. Why'd they make that fight?
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Hindsight's
Nonetheless,
2020, but
yeah,
like that was pretty bad. And then they ran it back in July and the same thing.
yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
even worse.
for some reason, they decided to run that fight back. They're like, we haven't seen Benavidez get beat up enough, so we're gonna. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, both these guys are incredible. Both these guys could be champion again at some point. Figueredo could probably win a belt at bantamweight, given some good circumstances, and Moreno could come back and win the flyweight belt if he makes some improvements. So
Yeah. Fun division. Here's my thing. The bottom of it is not great, but if you get like up to 7, 8, stacked.
yeah,
And you got some good guys there too, like Steve Erceg coming in. Dos Santos, who just fought Manel Kopp, coming in. Lots of young talent coming into that. Yeah, well, Erceg's like 30, but lots of new talent coming into that division.
yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Makayev is down there.
All right, let's get into the top 15, y'all. Jamal Hill. I think I'm 95% sure that's how you spell his name. But no
That is.
disrespect to this. But no disrespect to this dude. I think he is a worthy light heavyweight champion. The clinic he put on against Glover Teixeira, amazing. He set the record for the most significant strike set in a light heavyweight bout, beating Marvin Vettori when he fought Paulo Costa. Oh, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa, great fight. Go watch that. I want to see him get challenged on the ground. But if he lands, you got to start rethinking some things in your game plan because he will put you out. Is his nickname Lights Out?
Yeah, I believe so. Something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet dreams, sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we saw what he did to Johnny Walker when Johnny Walker went, whoa, and went back into the cage.
The goofiest knockout in UFC history.
Yeah. But I think, since he's injured, I think 15 is a perfect spot for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. Jamal Hill, I don't know why I keep thinking this, but I keep thinking that Jamal Hill lost recently for some reason, which his last loss is like 3 years ago. So he's on a great win streak. Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, someone tested him on the ground. I mean, the last time he did get tested on the ground, his arm was flopping around
That's
and he
true.
was getting elbowed in the face. So I'm sure he's made improvements to his ground game since then. And Paul Craig obviously is one of the best jiu-jitsu players in all of MMA. So there's no shame in that. And after that fight, he came out and he's been guns blazing ever since. I mean, his performances against Jamal Hill, against Thiago Santos, not an incredible performance. That was kind of a sloppy fight, but he finished it nonetheless. So when he fought OSP, destroyed him. I mean, he's got a lot of good finishes. I don't even know how many times he's gone to decision outside of the Glover fight in the UFC. Not many times. He finishes most of his fights. And in the Glover fight, honestly, it could have been stopped at several different points because he was dominating Glover. That was like a clear 50-44, 50-43 type situation. Just put an absolute beating on him. His striking is so smooth. Like I love to watch Jamal Hill just flow on the feet. The only thing I will say is that Jamal Hill is sort of like Patty in that he gets a little heavy outside of fight camp, and I would like him to, keep track of his weight a little bit more. Because even in his fights, you see him and he comes in with like sort of a little gut. It's like, man, just hit the gym a little bit more, dude. You're so
Yeah.
talented.
And
So
I mean, Prohaska, I think it was Prohaska that said something like, the weight gain probably contributed to his injury.
yeah,
Um,
probably.
Honestly, Jamal Hill could be a middleweight.
Yeah, he could probably cut down.
Um, but Jamal Hill, great fighter. We're not taking anything away from him by saying this about him. We just want to see him live up to his full potential. All right,
Yes.
number 14. What do we do here? Max Holloway. Yes, the Bless Express can only be stopped by the Volk train. I mean, what he did to Zombie, Criminal, uh, all the matchmakers at the UFC should be tried, because that fight never should have happened. Um, but they both wanted it. You got to give it to the people too. But what he did to Arnold Allen, masterclass. Yair, masterclass. Uh, Calvin Cater, maybe the best performance ever in an octagon, that I've seen with my two eyes. The only person this dude can't beat is Alexander Volkanovski. And I think the only way I see Max Holloway getting a title shot at featherweight is if Topuria beats Volkanovski. Volk wants to come back January. Let's just say they're going to fight in January. If Topuria beats Volk, then Holloway gets the title shot. Or Volk gets the rematch. Then
Yeah,
Holloway
Volk
gets the title
definitely.
shot.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
definitely gets
he
a
deserves
rematch.
every rematch.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, but there's nothing for me that says, oh, he doesn't deserve to be in the pound for pound rankings because he's beaten everybody but the champ dominantly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you look, Max Holloway's won 4 out of his last 5 fights, beating all contenders. The only guy that he's lost to is Volkanovski, and the two before that is 2 losses to Volkanovski as well. So, yeah, man. I mean, he is an incredible fighter. We know how talented and tough Max Holloway is. We know that he can beat everybody that is not named Alexander and Dustin Poirier as well. But that was moving up in weight, and it was like kind of a late replacement fight. But you know, man, I don't know. It's I would love to put Max Holloway higher, but when you lose to a guy 3 times in your own division, it's really hard to become champion again. It's very hard to make that argument of like, oh, I should get a 4th fight, even though I've lost the first 3 to this guy. Because if you're Volkanovski, it's like, what do I have to prove? I mean, the first fight, everybody's, a lot of people, not everybody, but many people were saying like, well, I think Max won that. Or sorry, the second fight. The first fight I thought was pretty clear Volkanovski won, but the second fight, a lot of people were saying that Max won, this and that. I thought Volk won that one as well. The third fight, he comes out there, no question, destroys him, dominates him, easy 50-45 for Volkanovski. So if you're him, like, what do you have to prove? But this takes nothing away from Max Holloway. He should deserve to be in the pound for pound ranking. He's been there for a very long time. He's not champion right now. We'll say that. But if Volkanovski didn't exist, he would have like 9 title defenses right now. So
he would.
So he definitely deserves. He's an incredible fighter. Like you mentioned, the Calvin Kattar performance is definitely, I think, unquestionably, it's the best performance that's ever been put on inside a UFC octagon. When you land over 400 significant strikes on someone, I mean, what can you say? Like, what more do you need to say?
I think it was 453 or something. It was,
yeah, like he had him hurt multiple times. I mean,
fight could have been stopped multiple times.
Yeah, easily could have been stopped several times.
All right, number 13, Alex Pereira. Um, you know, former middleweight champ, knocked out Izzy. Then he got knocked out by Izzy. Came back a few months later, beat Jan Blachowicz by decision. The dude's a savage. I'm so interested for this Prohaska fight. I mean, this is what you not. I mean, this is the most primal fight in UFC history. Let's be honest here. But it's just the way this dude's moved up through the rankings. I know he got pushed up to the middleweight title. I think there are people at middleweight that could beat him, that can wrestle. But I mean, the dude just has that one hitter quitter power, man, and he's technical with it. So yeah, I think 13 is a solid place for Pereira, and we'll see how high he goes if he beats Yuri in November.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You make a good point. He did get pushed to a title shot pretty quickly. He didn't fight anybody that really could present him problems on the ground. Sean Strickland. I mean, Sean Strickland could have if he actually decided to wrestle, but he did not. But like,
Shout out Sean
Bruno
Strickland.
Silva. But like Bruno Silva, of course, isn't really much of a threat when it comes to wrestling per se. But yeah, man, knocking out Adesanya, the way that he did it in the 5th round after losing most of that fight and then getting knocked out himself and then coming back and moving up a weight class and beating a killer like Jan Blachowicz. I mean, you got to give this man his flowers. Yes, we don't know how great his takedown defense is. And we see in the Jan Blachowicz fight, I mean, he can get taken down. Jan is a great wrestler and Pereira did defend a decent amount of takedowns, but Jan did get a pretty significant amount. I can't remember the exact, but a pretty significant amount of control time in that fight. So he can get taken down, he can get controlled, but he can also win fights even with that, So he's one of the best strikers in the whole UFC. And I think that alone, his striking prowess alone deserves a pretty high ranking in the pound for pound. And also just being a former champion and potential future champion in a different weight class. Although, hot take, I know a lot of people are on Pereira, man. I'm on Yuri in that fight.
Yeah, and we'll get to Yuri in just a moment, but we'll see who's here. I forget who we put here. Aljamain. I have mixed opinions about him. Won an Oscar and a title on the same night. I mean, not many people can do that, man. But in all seriousness, this dude is a savage. He proved himself to be a legit champ. Beating Cejudo, beating a one-armed Dillashaw, and beating Petr Yan, which I thought Petr Yan won that fight. To be honest, I cry every time I think about Petr Yan's downfall. But it's a worthy 12 spot, I'd say.
Yeah. I think regardless of one's feelings about Aljamain Sterling, I think his resume just speaks for itself. This guy, before O'Malley beat him, he was on a 9-fight win streak. I think a lot of people kind of overlook that because they just don't like Aljamain, they don't like his style. But look, man, when you beat 9 straight guys in the UFC, regardless of whether it's a finish, a decision, it doesn't matter. I mean, that is incredible. The guys that he beat too, finishing Corey Sandhagen in like a minute is incredible. Beating Petr Yan is a very tall task. Dillashaw, Cejudo, like he has a great resume. And just because you get knocked out by Sean O'Malley, I think Sean O'Malley is one of the best strikers in the whole UFC. I mean, a lot of people were hesitant to give him credit, and now it seems like everybody loves Sean. Oh my God, he's so incredible. It's like, yeah, he was pretty good. I mean, he was already pretty good before that. I have said since the day that it happened, I say this all the time actually, that O'Malley beat Yan, and I still believe that, and I do still believe that. And so no shame for Aljo getting knocked out by Sean O'Malley. He was on an incredible win streak before that, and I think he deserves 12 spot is good for him in the pound for pound rankings, man.
Yep, absolutely. All right, my favorite fighter on the roster, Yuri at number 11. Before I keep going, I interviewed his head coach back in July of last year. Check it out. I believe it's tagged on the channel on YouTube, but Martin Karivanov, look up the name and then you'll find it. But has anybody had a more exciting 3-fight run in the UFC than this dude? Like if this guy retired today, he'd be a legend because if that's all he wanted was the belt and he just retired, shoot, legend. Um, knocked out Volkan Oezdemir. Then he sent Dominic Reyes to, I think, a place not many people have ever been. I hope Dominic Reyes gets his feet back under him. And he fought in the greatest light heavyweight fight of all time against Glover Teixeira, subbing Glover Teixeira with 30 seconds to spare. So for people that say this guy can't grapple, I'd be scared if I were Alex Pereira if you decided to go to the ground with me. I could see this guy having multiple defenses at light heavyweight. When he came in, I'm like, this guy can be different, and we'll see how he is with the shoulder injury. But man, he's so good. He's so good.
Yeah, Dana keeps mentioning that it's the worst shoulder injury that he's ever seen in the history of the UFC, which does not sound good. So I hope he is fully recovered for this Pereira fight because it seems like a really horrific injury, whatever happened. But yeah, man, look, we're talking about with Pereira, short path to a title shot. I mean, I don't think anybody in history has had a shorter path to a title shot than Yuri Prochazka. This guy came in, KO'd Oezdemir, KO'd Reyes, boom, into a title shot. And guess what? I'm perfectly fine with it. In fact, I am very happy about that because I think we're considering, pound for pound best fighters. Yes, we should look at guys' UFC records, but also we should look at what they did outside of the UFC if they did something that is notable, right? And Yuri Prochazka fought in Ryzen for a very long time. He fought good competition in there, guys like King Mo, guys,
CB Dalloway,
CB Dalloway, a couple of former UFC guys, and he destroyed most of them. I mean, he did get finished by King Mo, but I believe that fight was like the second fight of that night.
That fight happened after he TKO'd Vadim Nemkov by retirement after a 10-minute round.
Yeah, exactly. So he's already fighting one of the toughest guys. I mean, Vadim Nemkov is an incredible fighter, beats him, and then has to go fight King Mo. And that's a tough thing to do, right? But this guy had like 20, 24, 25 wins outside of the UFC, like a 90-something% finish rate. So that alone should get him, a pretty high ranking, I would say. But yeah, becoming champion by subbing Glover Teixeira. And people out there may say like, oh, well, Glover was tired. It was near the end of the fight and Yuri just like grabbed it and it was a fluke, whatever. No, it was not. He has good grappling. He showed that he has very good takedown defense against Glover. He can reverse positions off his back. Yuri is one of the most underrated fighters off of his back in the entire UFC. This guy has a very dangerous submission game and a very dangerous ground game. So
yeah, he almost darced Glover off his back.
Yeah, exactly. I think he deserves absolutely to be a number 11 in the pound for pound ranking. And you just look, I mean, what he did to Oezdemir was a crime. I mean, what he did to Dominic Reyes. If Oezdemir, what he did was a crime, then this guy should be put to death for what he did to Dominic Reyes because it's disgusting. Frankly, I'm disappointed. No, I'm just kidding. But no, really, like some of the craziest knockouts in UFC history, back to back, and then subs one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the UFC to become champion. Pretty awesome. Deserves it for sure.
Yeah, that Dominic Reyes knockout might be the most like. I think that's the one time I thought someone probably might be dead in the octagon because the way he landed on his neck.
Oh, dude, the way his like head just hits the ground and then you see like blood coming out of his face. You're like, oh my God. I mean,
did you see the video? You know how I'm sure you've seen the Dan Hooker video like after the Poirier fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you seen the one for Reyes?
No.
Dude, it's bad. I'll find it and I'll send it to you, but dude, it's so sad.
Jeez.
Like the life was taken out of him.
I bet, man.
And then like, he got knocked out by a jab against Ryan Spann. I hope he gets I think he needs to retire. You don't come back after 3 brutal knockouts like that.
Yeah. Isn't it 4? Hasn't he lost
he lost to Jones.
Oh yeah, he didn't get knocked out by Jones. That's right.
He got knocked out by Blachowicz.
Yeah.
And Yuri and then
yeah.
Spann. Damn.
Dang, all right, man. Tough.
Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya. at number 10. Great champ. I think he got a little exposed in that Sean Strickland fight. That's why we have him at 10. Great champ, like we said. But like I said, like if he and Yuri were to fight, I think Yuri decimates him. Especially with the pressure and the power. Dang, that fight could have happened. But I don't know. Izzy's good. He's a great fighter. He could still get the belt again. I don't think his skill has really diminished that much or at all. So, and middleweights age gracefully typically. So we'll see. What's your thoughts on Izzy at 10?
Yeah, I think Izzy deserves to be at 10. He was what, like 2, 3, maybe even 1 at one point. Actually, I don't know if he was ever number one
I think
pound
he
for
got to
pound.
2. I think that was his
Yeah.
highest.
Yeah, he was definitely out there, 2, 3, 4 for many years, and he deserved it, right? But he did lose to Sean Strickland, and I will agree, he did get exposed a little bit in that fight. And I think it just showed me that he got stuck with one game plan of I'm going to jab, I'm going to leg kick, I might teep to the body a little bit, but I'm just going to keep my range, circle out. I'm not going to put too much pressure. I'm going to make sure that you can't pressure me too much or try to. And then some guy, Sean Strickland, just comes in and says, actually, I'm just going to walk forward. I'm not going to use footwork. I'm just going to take steps forward and I'm going to put so much pressure on you. And Izzy's like, oh my God, if only I could use knees or elbows or any other body shots or any other various weapons, which he can, to stop pressure. Like, since the beginning of fighting in mixed martial arts, like one of the greatest ways to stop a guy pressuring you is land a knee in his gut or throw a couple of hooks to the body or throw an elbow, cut him up and get him off you. Adesanya did none of that. He did not adapt well in that fight whatsoever. So I think if he had lost to Strickland in like a close decision, he could have won. I think he should still be like 5, 6, 7. But the way that he lost to Strickland, and he was a very dominant champion. I love Israel Adesanya as a fighter. Great champion, very active. But the way that he lost to Strickland, I think 10 is pretty appropriate. I think he should have, he deserved to slide a little bit in the pound for pound rankings.
Yep, for sure. All right, number 9. I forget who we did here. Ah, yeah, Sugar Sean. I think the UFC has him at like 6 or 7. But we have Sean Strickland up here somewhere, and we put him over Sean O'Malley due to the fact that he beat a more dominant champion in Adesanya than Aljamain. But I mean, that right hand he uncorked on Aljamain Sterling was beautiful. And I think that was a great stoppage by Mark Goddard. Aljamain fenced up after one of the shots. But Sugar Sean's the real deal. However, I do think Cheeto can beat him again. Because I mean, Cheeto has a chin on him. Yeah, but I'm curious. This is a fun fight, man. This is a fun fighter. He'll probably fight Cheeto very soon, but I can't wait for this. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, man. I think Suga definitely deserves a top 10 spot in pound for pound. I don't know about 6. I think that's where the UFC has him. That's a little bit high in my opinion. I get it. I was at least praising Aljamain Sterling for how good he was, and O'Malley did knock him out. But yeah, outside, he beat Jan in a pretty close decision, beat Sterling. I just don't think before that he hasn't really had any incredible wins outside of that. So I think putting him at 6 is a little bit high. I think 9 is a better spot just because he's still, in terms of his resume, a little bit unproven, but he's getting there. Having names like Jan and Aljamain Sterling on your resume is very, very good. And to be honest with you, I think he does beat Cheeto. I think that O'Malley is accurate enough and powerful enough to find and crack his chin. I know that Cheeto is very durable, has an incredible chin, but there are many guys that have incredible chins that have been cracked before. I just think O'Malley, the accuracy is going to be too much. He's going to hit Cheeto too much, and I just don't think he's going to be able to sustain it. So, but yeah, in terms of his skill set, I think he's a very underrated grappler. I think he's got really solid grappling. His takedown defense could obviously use some work, but in the Aljo fight, Aljo had him against the cage. He had his leg up basically above his head, and O'Malley was able to defend that. He shucked off a lot of takedowns in that fight. So we've seen steady improvements from this guy. We know how good his striking is. I think he deserves a top 10 spot here.
Absolutely. Number 8, Pantoja. Um, I know this is probably high for a lot of you guys, but I think Toby can best explain the reasoning.
Yeah, man. Pantoja is an incredible fighter. You look at the flyweight division, not many fights get finished in flyweight, but Pantoja is one of those guys who finishes fights. You know, he goes out, he finished Alex Perez in like a minute and a half. He finished Brandon Royval by sub too. And Brandon Royval is a great submission artist in his own right. I mean, this guy, he's finishing top level flyweights. He goes out there and puts on, in my opinion, a pretty dominant performance over Brandon Moreno, who we have in our honorable mention list as, you know, one of the best pound for pound fighters out there. So I think Pantoja certainly deserves a spot up here. Anybody who had that fight for Moreno, it's interesting. You know, I'm not sure. I don't know what world you were living in, but I thought it was pretty clearly 4 rounds to 1 for Pantoja. This guy, I kept thinking, all right, and I was rooting for Moreno in that fight, but I kept thinking, like, all right, this is the round Pantoja gets tired. All right, now this is the round. He never got tired. His output is insane. He throws so much power behind all of his shots, and yet he does not get tired. I don't understand what this guy's
Yep.
training regimen is, but he has basically infinite cardio and still throws at full power. His grappling is unbelievable. I mean, he is one of the best grapplers in the whole UFC, and his striking has been developing super rapidly. I think 8 is a perfect spot. I know people might say, like, oh, he just became champion, blah, 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 whatever. No, Pantoja is a beast. That man deserves to be up there.
Absolutely. I'm not even gonna add anything to that. You put it perfectly, man. All right. Here's the thing, guys. Sean Strickland at 7. He beat one of the more dominant champions in the past 10 years, I'd say, and it wasn't even close. Not remotely close. Do I think he defends his belt many times? Not really, to be quite frank. However, this is a perfect spot for him. He beat the champ with a 1-2 and a teep kick. And you know, if you look at, he has a great resume, guys. You know, you could argue he beat Cannonier.
I do think he beat Cannonier.
What's his face? Nasruddin Imamov is no bum by any means. You know, hold on, I'm looking up his record real quick. Abu, you know, and this guy takes any fight really. I mean, he didn't have to fight a boost, but he did. You know, a loss to Pereira. That's just, you know, not a bad loss. He beat Jack Hermanson dominantly, even though it says by split. That judge needs to be fired. Uriah Hall, he beat Brendan Allen. That win aged gracefully. You know, he fought Kamaru Usman. He fought Santiago Ponzinibbio. He, you know, Zaleski dos Santos. He fought, and Jack Marshman. He beat Jack Marshman too. He's beat a lot of great guys. And he's the champ, and he dominated the champ. So that's why we got him at 7. Would you have anything to add to that?
Oh no, man. Sean Strickland, another one of those guys like Drecus, where he has a weird style. Probably shouldn't work as well as it does, but it does, and he's, you know, very much into a, you know, high guard, that Philly shell type style. You know, parrying a lot of shots, rolling with shots, but it works, man. Like you said, Adesanya, one of the more dominant champions in the UFC, held his belt for several years, defended it like 5 times before losing to Pereira. So yeah, I mean, the way that he did it too, like you said, there wasn't really even a question. I mean, it was a clear 4 rounds to 1, if not 5 rounds to 0 for Sean Strickland. Yeah, beating Abus. Abus clearly not as good as everyone expected him to be, but it could just be that Sean Strickland destroyed him, and maybe he is pretty good, and Strickland just beat him up. So there is that. Imavov is a very good fighter. He beat him. Like I said, I thought he beat Cannonier. So if you really go through it like that, the dude, his only loss, in my opinion, and now I get it, like on the record, sure, we'll say that, but unofficially, his only loss, if it were up to me, in the last like 5 years, would have been to Alex Pereira, who we have in the pound for pound ranking. So I think that yeah, Sean Strickland is deserving. I don't know if maybe 7 might be a little high for my liking, but I do think Sean Strickland certainly deserves to be pretty high up in pound for pound rankings.
Yeah, look at it, it does look a tad high, but we got Pantoja high as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's not a bad one, man. I think it's a good.
no, no,
It's
it's reasonable.
we have the best pound for pound ranking in the world.
Yeah.
Number 6, Kamaru Usman, another one of the most dominant champions of our lifetime, of our fandom. Um, he only did beat 3 people in his title defenses: Colby, Jorge, Gilbert Burns. I just recently figured that out, actually. However, he was dominant in almost every one of those wins. And Colby Covington, yes, did give him a run for his money. However, I don't know, he was just dominant, man. And I think we'll appreciate him more once he's out of the sport. I don't think he'll be out of the sport much longer. Oh, I don't think he'll be in the sport too much longer. If he loses his next fight, I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. It's rumored to be Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad. But anyway, I'm not gonna get into Bilal Muhammad. But I don't know, man. What's your thoughts on Marty Fake? What's on Marty in at number 6?
Yeah, no, I think he deserves it, man. I think yes, he got finished by Leon, but he was winning that fight pretty easily. He was definitely up 3 rounds to 1, probably going to win 4 rounds to 1. And he got finished, and then he got beat by Leon again. But look, Leon is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, as we will see shortly as well. And with Kamaru Usman, man, we talk about dominance. This guy won 15 straight fights in the UFC. Fit not There was no draw, whatever. 15 wins in a row. Not even a split decision in that entire time. Not one split decision. Domination. This guy was one fight away from breaking Anderson Silva's UFC record that has stood for many years of longest consecutive win streak. And yes, he lost that. But you look at the guy, like people were always saying about Usman, oh, he doesn't finish anybody. Okay. He wins the title, dominates Tyron Woodley, like absolutely destroys him in 5 rounds to nothing, clearly. Probably I think it was like a 50-43. Then he finishes Colby, right? Goes to decision with Masvidal, kind of a weird fight. Then he destroys Gilbert Burns, drops him with a jab, finishes him. Then
Gilbert Burns always gets dropped with a jab.
Yeah, he does. But then he starches Masvidal, like one punch KO, and then he beats Colby. So I mean, this guy turned into a bit of a finisher when he became champion. He was relatively active, and his fights got much, much better when he became champion. So I think he deserves. I know he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but really, he's only lost to Leon, and that's literally the only guy he's ever lost to in the UFC. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I think he deserves to be up pretty high.
yeah. Just for the record, the only reason I said Marty Fake Newsman is because we were talking about Colby Covington prior, and then we were mentioning it beforehand. But I respect Kamaru Usman. It's not that I don't respect him. I respect the hell out of him. I think he's a wonderful fighter.
I think he's a great fighter, but he is a little bit of a goofball outside the cage. He's a bit corny, and I know he's from Nebraska. I'm not just saying he's corny because he's from Nebraska, but man, this guy, he's not a great.
He's not good on the mic.
He's not good on the mic. Yeah, he fumbles a little bit.
One of my favorite clips of all time is when Ben Askren, hey Marty, what's up, man? Good to see you. And Kamaru Usman like kind of walks up to him and like looks down at him, like trying to look all big, and the expression on Ben Askren's face just did not change whatsoever. And he goes, "Yeah, you're Marty from Nebraska. We used to train together at the Olympic Training Institute."
Yeah, man.
I love Ben.
What a guy.
I wish we had prime Ben Askren in the UFC because I think he could have been dominant.
Yeah, honestly, and I know a lot of people have said this, but if that flying knee had never landed, that would have been Ben Askren ragdolling Masvidal for like 15 minutes, probably.
Yeah, that's someone like Askren's the last dude I want to come across on the street because I can't. If he grabs a hold of me, I'm done.
Yeah, he's a beast, man.
All right, Charles Oliveira at number 5. The only person he's lost to lately is Islam Makhachev, who's higher up in the rankings. However, I do think Charles Oliveira is really, really good. And I think he can beat Makhachev. I really do think he can. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, but he can beat him. And he's beaten everybody else except Makhachev in the past, 10 fights, how long his streak was. And that I'm Toby knows this. I'm a Beneil Dariush guy. I love me some Dariush. That was a beatdown. That was terrible. I mean, that was a big beatdown, and that fight could have been stopped earlier. I think Herzog could have stepped in about 5-10 seconds earlier to stop that one. But Charles Oliveira is that dude. Toby, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, he was on an 11 fight win streak before he ran into Islam Makhachev. And I think we got to do Charles some justice here. Just, people may say like, "Oh, he lost and whatever." Listen to some of these names and some of these finishes, all right? Submitted Clay Guida, submitted Jim Miller, knocked out Nick Lentz, knocked out Jared Gordon, submitted Kevin Lee, decision over Ferguson, which is like, Tony Ferguson, very, very durable guy, at least at that point. Knocked out Michael Chandler, submitted Dustin Poirier, submitted Justin Gage. I mean, we're talking, he's beating the best guys in the world and finishing every single one of them. This guy, his championship run, in my humble opinion, might be the most exciting championship run in UFC history. And I know he only had one title defense technically, because the Gaethje fight, we had that weird issue with the scales, so technically he wasn't champion for that. But realistically, he won the belt against Chandler. He had 2 title defenses. We know how good Gaethje is, right? We know how good Poirier is, and he dismantled both those guys. And sure, he got dropped a couple of times, but he gets dropped in every single fight. It does not matter. And what's so impressive about the Dariush performance, like you mentioned, he didn't get dropped. It was just domination. He beat up Dariush. He hurt him bad. Charles, I don't know. This dude has crazy power. That's one of the most underrated things about Charles Oliveira that I don't think a lot of people mention. He has unbelievable power. The first 10 seconds of the fight with Justin Gaethje, he wobbled him. And Gaethje was like actually on skates immediately. And then there were a lot of shots that he landed on Dariush. I didn't even think were landing that clean and were hurting him badly. So this dude packs crazy power. Obviously, you don't even have to say, we know how good his jiu-jitsu is. We know how technical this man is. Great champion, great fighter. Definitely deserves a top 5 spot in the pound for pound rankings.
I don't. Oliveira does have power, but I think it's more technique. He doesn't throw anything like winging or anything. He just knows where to put the shot, and he lands super precisely accurate each time.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely is power for sure, but we got to give some credit on the technique too. He's crisp.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 4 is Leon Edwards. I will never forget where I was sitting, what time it was when he knocked out Kamaru Usman. It's just one of those moments. I just remember screaming and yelling my friend's name, a word that I cannot say on here because kids show. Nothing racist or anything, just kids show. It's a potty word, kids show, guys. But and that Usman his performance against Usman in the second fight, the third fight rather. He looked great, and I think Usman was tentative. I'm not taking anything away from Leon because Leon made him tentative. So I don't, we've only seen him fight a few times in the past few years, but he's fighting Colby Covington coming up soon, and we'll see how he does against a relentless wrestler like Colby Covington, a guy who looks for submissions, chains together takedowns. I am very intrigued for this fight against Colby Covington.
Yeah, no, I think Leon definitely deserves to be up here. He's on like an 11 or 12 fight unbeaten streak. Even in the Bilal fight, I think it was pretty clear where that fight was headed. Obviously, you can't say for sure, but he seemed to be doing pretty well. I don't know if Bilal even shot many times, but he seemed like he probably could have held his own in the grappling. We saw that in the second fight. He was definitely able to defend a lot of takedowns from Kamaru Usman. And something that I honestly didn't even realize, he landed 74% of his significant strikes in the second Kamaru Usman fight, 120 of 161. That is mind-blowing. Like the level of accuracy and precision, like we were just talking about with Oliveira. I mean, Leon Edwards is an extremely precise striker. beautiful technique. Has beaten some of the best guys in the world. And granted, gone to decision, most like the Cowboy fight, the RDA fight. He's goes to decision quite a bit. But when you're on that long of a win streak and you're only not even a setback, but blemish is just like Bilal is a no contest, but it was an eye poke. So yeah, man, we gotta give
On
him
a
some
fight,
credit
he
here.
was well on his way to winning.
Yeah, yeah. So we definitely got to give him credit. He's the champ. He knocked out Usman the first time, beat him pretty handily the second time. So I think definitely well deserved. And Usman at that point was like number 2 pound for pound, or even number 1. So actually, no, he was number 1. He was definitely number 1 because I remember after the fight,
Yeah, he
Leon was
was.
like, "There is no pound for pound. The belt belongs to
Pound for
nobody."
pound, headshot, dead.
Yeah. So come on, man. Beating number 1 pound for pound, you definitely got to be up there.
Yeah. All right, number 3, Islam Makhachev. The only person this guy's lost to lately is the co-number 1 pound for pound, Alexander Volkanovski. Volk 235. Can't tell me any differently. But um, just for the record, guys, you could argue Islam won that fight, and I'm not going to be mad at you, okay? But Volk won that. But Islam Makhachev, man, this guy, he's been running through the rankings. People say he didn't deserve the title shot against Charles Oliveira. Subbed him. Before that, he didn't really fight anybody. He had a tough time against what's his face, Arman Sarukian a few years back. He fought Thiago Moises, won that. Drew Dober won that.
Yeah.
I think he subbed Drew Dober. I'm pulling up his record right now, but yeah, TKO'd Bobby Green, sub Dan Hooker, sub Thiago Moises, sub Drew Dober. Yeah, man, he's really good. He is really good. And I think that, yes, he got knocked out by Martins, but that happens. He's really good, guys. And, you see the Charlie train going through on Twitter saying Charles Oliveira is going to win this. I think the same thing's going to happen in October. I think Makhachev subs him. But anyway, what's your thoughts on Islam being up at 3?
Yeah, but my thoughts, I hear a lot of people say, his resume isn't great. He hasn't fought a ton of good guys. I mean, I don't know, dude. Arman Sarukian is a very good fighter, and he beat him. And yes, Arman was a little bit less developed. That might have even been his debut, to be honest. But we know how good Arman is. He was still very good at that time. Drew Dober, great fighter, subbed him. He finished Thiago Moises. He finished Dan Hooker very quickly. And people were saying, like, oh, Dan Hooker's washed. He's done. Dan Hooker's on a 2-fight win streak, and he just beat Jalen Turner, who I think is one of the better fighters in the entire division. And he just beat him. And then he knocked out or TKO'd Bobby Green super quick. So all these guys, these are good names, man. And I get people saying, like, oh, he got a title shot off Bobby Green. Well, not really. He got a title shot because he hadn't lost a fight in like 8 years. So,
Yeah, and who Bobby Green replaced somebody.
yeah,
Can't
it
remember
was
who it
supposed to
was.
be Dariush, or was it?
Let's.
They were gonna,
I have it pulled up. Hold on.
yeah, I believe he was gonna fight Dariush, but man, either way, Makhachev, what he did to Oliveira, and we mentioned this earlier, but subbing Charles Oliveira is incredible in its own right. But
It was
dropping him,
Dariush.
yeah, but like dropping him and then subbing him, like I said, guys don't, even when they drop and hurt Charles, they don't want to go in on the ground with him because they know how good he is. Islam had no fear. He was on the wrong side for the arm triangle, jumped over with ease, and just as soon as his thighs hit the mat, Oliveira's tapping. It's like, man, I mean, this guy is so good. And yeah, I get it. A lot of people thought Volkanovski won the fight. Very close. Volk dropped him at one point. It was a tough fight, man. But he showed his toughness. He showed that Volkanovski, arguably the best pound for pound guy in the world right now. We know how good this guy is. And Makhachev went toe to toe with him in a super close battle. He had a pretty decent amount of control time in that fight. He hurt Volk. He hurt Volk pretty bad in that fight too. I mean, he didn't drop him, but Volk was definitely wobbled and almost dropped by Makhachev in that fight. Um, yeah, man. It's a tough fight to score, but regardless of how you score it, there's no denying that Makhachev is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world.
For sure. All right. 1B. 1B. Number 1B. What the hell? Why didn't it? There we go. Volk. Um, we'll get in the reasoning between that he's 1B in a second, but I mean, this guy has beaten everyone dominantly except Holloway. And the reason why I think is because he was woken up by USADA in the middle of the night to get a blood test. Kind of unfair. Um, but dominant otherwise as a champ. He survived an Ortega guillotine, mounted guillotine rather. I don't know how he got out of that. The lights were dimming, he said, and then he survived a triangle moments later. But outside of that, he's been so dominant as a champion, and he's so active as a champion too. We're privileged to see this guy fight all the time. He's probably fighting Taporia next. I'm interested to see how Taporia rises to the challenge, but Volk is a bad man.
Yeah, Volkanovski, man, he is something special, like skill for skill, technique for technique. He very well could be one of the few greatest fighters we've ever seen enter the octagon. This guy, he adapts so well in every fight. He comes in with a perfect game plan for every single fight. And even the most unique challenges, like we've seen him take on a grappler and Ortega, and he's been in terrible spots with Ortega. He almost got finished with the guillotine. The triangle was pretty close. There was a Darce that was somewhat close. Got out of all of it, came back, destroyed him. I mean, absolutely dominated the rest of that fight. Max Holloway, probably the best featherweight champion, at least at that point, definitely the best featherweight champion. Well, I don't know. I mean, all those up there too, but regardless, incredible champion. He goes out there, has a couple of fairly close fights, and then just dominates him in their third matchup. And that was after Max had won 2 straight fights. Beautiful performance against Cater, beautiful performance against Yair, and Volk still dominates him. Goes out there against Yair, and a lot of people thought Yair would give him probably his toughest test because of the range, the striking, and I thought so too. I mean, and he destroyed. It wasn't even close. I mean, that performance against Yair. I said earlier that Max versus Cater was the best performance. That performance by Volk against Yair very well could be the best performance that we've ever seen inside the octagon. And then before that, he had the fight with Makhachev, where he moves up a weight class against one of the best fighters in the world and goes toe to toe with him and arguably wins. This guy absolutely is one or two. He's either one or two when it comes to pound for pound rankings. In my mind, it's very, very close. But yeah, like I said, in terms of like skills and techniques and just what he does in the octagon, I think he's almost unparalleled, except for there's one man who could match him,
One
and he's in
man,
a much higher
and
weight class.
that man is Johnny Bones. Here's why I think we decided to put him at number one. In my opinion, until he loses, he will never not be pound for pound number one. Years of domination. He has more fights in the title fights in the UFC than Khabib has total fights. Oh, for all you Khabib guys out there who think he's the GOAT, stop now. Not even close. Aldo's higher. So many people higher than Khabib, in my opinion. But John Jones, I mean, he comes back after 3 years, moving up a weight class he's never fought in before, and subs the former interim champ in 2 minutes. Now, I know Gon's grappling isn't great, but if you saw Gon against Sergey Pavlovich, I think that made John Jones's win look a whole lot better. A whole lot better. John Jones can beat you anywhere. He can beat you at your own game. There's nothing he can't do great. And he's fighting Stipe and at MSG in July, headlining over Prohaska and Pereira. Can't wait for that. I think John Jones, I hope I'm right, and I hope I'm not just speaking this out of existence, but I think John Jones will beat Stipe and retire, and no one will ever touch how great he is. John Jones is so great, no one can ever match his greatness, in my opinion. Ever.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think you make a good case for John being number one. I mean, if you just look at the longevity of his career, like you mentioned, I mean, this guy's been in title fights since 2011. He was beating the era of fighters of the Shoguns and the Rampages and Lyoto Machida and all these guys that are of a whole different era. And then the new guys were coming in, Gustafson, Glover was sort of new to the UFC back then. DC, and then even another class of guys, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Dominic Rey. He beat all of them, every single one of them. There are some fights that were closer than others, but there was never a question who the greatest was. He is the greatest of all time. I get he popped a couple of times, very small amounts of steroid usage, to be fair, has a lot of issues outside of the octagon. But when he steps into that cage, man, there is nobody better than John Jones. So I agree. I agree. The performance against Gane, total domination, wasn't even close. He was quick, explosive at heavyweight. The gut, had a little gut. I'm not gonna lie, had a little gut, but it was fine. Still looked incredible in there. And I don't look, man. I have all the respect in the world for Stipe. I love Stipe. Great guy. One of the best human beings probably on the roster. Incredible guy. Great fighter.
Firefighter.
I don't get what people are seeing in this matchup, right? I see Stipe. I think John Jones opened at like minus 450 or something. He's down to like minus 350. I'm like, man, why is all this money pouring in on Stipe? I see so many people like Stipe is going to present this problem. I see John Jones doing whatever he wants to Stipe. I don't think it's going to be a close fight. If John Jones wants to take him down and finish him by rear naked choke, he's going to do that. If John Jones wants to stand around on the feet and pick him apart for 5 rounds, he's going to do that. If John Jones wants to spinning back elbow him, he's going to do that. Okay. I don't think this fight is even close. I have no clue what people like I said, all respect in the world to Stipe. This guy has been out for over 2.5 years. In the last fight that he had, he got brutally knocked out by Francis Ngannou. Why are people so confident for some? Like, obviously, John Jones still is a big favorite, but there seems to be within the MMA community a lot of positive sentiment around Stipe and his chances against Jones. I don't see it, man. John Jones is the GOAT. John Jones is the number 1 pound for pound fighter.
And don't get me wrong. I love Stipe. But I think Stipe's hand speed could come into effect here. That's where I could see Stipe winning this fight, just outboxing him. But Jones is going to stay at kicking range.
Yeah.
So, Jones will stay pound for pound number 1, retire pound for pound number 1, and retire as the greatest to ever fight.
I just think too, even in the Gane fight that Jones just had, we saw Gane, he's very fast. Cyril Gane is a super quick, explosive guy. He threw one left hand. The way that John Jones was like, whoop, slipped off to the side and ducked in on that double leg was beautiful. I almost cussed there, but I did not. It was beautiful, man. It was a absolutely gorgeous performance by John Jones. I think that if Stipe starts landing with the hands, Jones is he's either gonna creatively strike with him, like I said, throw a spinning back elbow, throw knees, throw something that's gonna change the pace of the fight, or start throwing some teeps. I don't know, whatever. Or he's gonna shoot for a takedown. Regardless, John Jones, and this is why I talk about this a lot, but this is why John Jones and Volkanovski are the number 1 and number 2 pound for pound guys. Adaptability. No matter what happens in their fights, it does not matter how it's going. They will adapt. They will improvise. They will find a way to win that fight, no matter what. John Jones, that's why I'll always have confidence in these 2 guys, because I know that no matter what is going on in that fight, they are a step ahead. They will figure something out that their opponent cannot.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the Joneses, do you see the videos like about Chandler Jones and stuff?
No.
Like he was, I don't know. He's not mentally in the right place, I don't think. Like he had like a video on Twitter or Instagram where he was saying like Aaron Hernandez didn't commit suicide in prison and stuff like that. And like he started like bawling in the video. I'm like, damn, man.
It's rough, man. The Jones family has some, they've got some issues, man.
Yeah. Someone said, "Where's John in all this?" I'm like, is John really the guy you want to call in this situation? Like,
probably not.
I'm
not
so
going
sad.
to
Prayers
John Jones for mental health advice.
Yeah, prayers to Chandler Jones, man. That's that's horrible. I mean, what these football players go through like later in their career and after their career is pretty sad sometimes. But
yes,
no buts. Not much news going on, really. I mean, Ian Gary versus Vicente Luque and Kelvin Gastelum and Sean Brady are the 2 fights this week that have popped out to me that have been made.
good fights,
I think Carol Rosa and Irina Aldana are fighting in December. So, some decent fights made, but outside of that, I can't think of much, bro.
Yeah, no, I can't either.
I'm going MMA fighting real quick. Uh, Cain Velasquez's murder trial is expected to attempted murder trial rather expected to start in January. You know, if some dude's dealing with kids, man, I don't you you don't deserve anything. I don't blame Cain for doing what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he'll probably get found guilty, but he's gonna nothing's bad's gonna happen to that dude in prison. Um, and Ganu is training with Mike Tyson. And I don't think it looks that pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the technique is ever really going to be there for Ngannou when it comes to boxing. But man, that power, that is the great equalizer. So we'll
The
see.
one hitter quitter. The one hitter quitter. Hold on, I need to see if we talked about this on the last episode. Um, no, we didn't. Tony Ferguson will fight Paddy Pimblett at 296.
The fight we've all been asking for. Dana, please. We want Tony to fight Paddy Pimblett,
I
please.
hope. Here's the thing. Tony still has power, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Paddy Pimblett sticks out that chin.
yep.
I hope Tony knocks him down and hits him with a classic Darce and retires and rides off into the night.
I hope so too. But man, the last two fights that Tony's had have been so sad to watch because he's so slow. He has no explosiveness left. Like, yeah, he still packs a little power. And they say that the last thing to go is the power, right? When you're especially in boxing, like you see these George Foreman type guys who are like 50 years old and they have no technique left, basically, no head movement, no footwork, but he still has incredible power. And Tony still has pretty good power. You know, he dropped Chandler, he dropped Bobby Green, but at the same time, man, he has like 10% of his speed left, like 10% of his explosiveness, 10% of that footwork. You know, like I saw a video of him. You know, he does that signature knee slide before every fight, like when he's getting announced. He couldn't even do it in the last one because like his knees are just shot, man.
He couldn't do it in the DS fight. The thing I
Yeah.
looked for in the green fight was if he could do it, and he did do it in the green fight. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
okay. So yeah, in the Diaz one.
CSGO, CSO, CSO,
Yeah, yeah.
not
But man,
Counter Strike.
yeah, I just think Tony is too shot at this point. I really hope he does win because I am not a fan of Paddy Pimblett. I
No,
hate the guy. I think he's one of the most overrated fighters to ever come into the UFC.
he's not good.
So, like, yeah, he's got good grappling. Don't get me wrong, but man, that guy has abysmal striking, and even his grappling is really just very offensive. So, yeah, I hope Tony wins, but I don't know, man.
It's
He's
Tony
shot.
time, man. It's Tony time.
You know,
It's
he's on a
Tony time.
6 fight losing streak. So I don't know.
And I don't think we talked about this one. Steven Thompson versus Shavkat Rakhmonov is official.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup for old Wonder Boy.
I mean,
Tough matchup for
17
both guys, to be
finishes,
honest. But
17
yeah,
finishes, 17 fights is nothing to slouch at.
yeah, that's
I mean,
incredible.
if Rakhmonov takes him down, I think it could be lights out, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty ugly, I feel like. And you know, I think a lot of people they're like, oh well, if it stays on the feet, well, first of all, Stephen Thompson has never had good takedown defense. His takedown defense kind of sucks. So if Shavkat wants to take it to the ground, he probably will take it to the ground. Second of all, I don't know why people have this belief that like, oh, dude, there's no way Shavkat could stand with him. Do you guys remember when Tyron Woodley stood and banged with Stephen Thompson and hurt him so badly that Stephen Thompson's face was like mid fight, just like couldn't even move it? Yeah, I remember that. Okay. And Tyron Woodley is
T
not
Wood.
he's not an incredible striker by any means. So I'm not saying that Thompson is a bad striker. I'm just saying that there are certain styles that he does not handle well. And I think that Shavkat presents a style that he will not handle well. And Shavkat's not a bad striker. He stood with Jeff Neal, who is a phenomenal striker, a beast on the feet.
Powerful.
And he hurt him very badly. And then that choke finish where he just stood behind him, wrapped him up, and then kicked his leg around him and pulled back like this. That was like a grown man with a little boy, just like, oh, here, come here. So, dude, Shavkat is legit. He is a beast, and this is a very tough matchup for Stephen Thompson. With all that being
Shavkat
said,
should win this fight.
yeah, Shavkat
No
should win.
doubt in
But
my I think Shavkat's a future dominant champion.
I
That's
do
how I
too.
see him.
I think he's
And
better than Hamzat, to be
yeah,
honest.
I think he beat Hamza pretty convincingly.
I think he would beat
Um,
him, yeah.
I think Shavkat proved everything we needed to know about him in that Jeff Neal fight. He proved he's tough. He can
Yeah.
fight through adversity. He can win rounds after being, damaged pretty badly. And he
Yeah.
won, and he can come in the clutch and finish the fight in the third round after a tough battle. That's one of the top 5 fights of the year. That was a great fight.
Incredible fight.
We learned everything we need to learn about Shavkat Rakhmonov in that fight. So
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
very excited. I am so excited for this fight. It's gonna be fun.
And Jeff Neal cracked him with a huge 2-punch combination. And Shavkat stumbled a little bit and then just acted like nothing happened. I mean, he didn't go down. It wasn't like, when Hamzat got dropped by Gilbert Burns, I mean, that he was pretty hurt. And he did recover quickly, but man, Shavkat didn't even go down. This guy has a granite chin, and his head is like 2 human heads put together. He has one of the biggest heads in pound for pound, biggest head in UFC history, Shavkat Rakhmonov. So,
No, I think that
or
might go to
Cejudo,
Stipe, bro. That might go to Stipe, bro.
or Stipe,
That dude
yeah.
has a noggin. I look at the pic. I know I have a pretty big head. Toby can
Yeah.
attest to this. I have a pretty big head. I look at the picture of me and Stipe, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my head is like almost as big as like his head looks just huge compared to mine. But here's the thing with Rakhmonov on the feet that I think he beats Thompson out in: elbows and knees. He was piecing Jeff Neal up with knees to the body that whole fight. And then Thompson might go down, and Rakhmonov's just going to take advantage of that neck. But I think if Thompson can find a way to just stay at range, it could be an interesting fight. But Rakhmonov he's so
He's
good.
legit. He's legit.
He's legit. All right, Toby, we've been recording for almost an hour and a half.
Yeah,
I think it's time we head off.
Yeah.
I'll probably upload this on tomorrow because there's no fights. We got to give the people something for fight day. But anyway, stay saucy, everyone. We'll see you guys soon.
Peace.